Hey guys, it's Manager Kylie, and in today's video I'm going to share with you how to run a 6-2 rotation in volleyball. So a 6-2 rotation means you have 6 hitters and 2 setters. So how is this possible? You may be asking, with only 6 people on the court. Well, your setter always sets from the back row. So you always have 3 hitters in the front row, no matter where people are on the court. So that means you always have either a right setter or another setter in the front row when your setter is in the back row, and then you actually use 2 different setters in this rotation. So this is definitely helpful for teams that have 2 setters, or even like a junior varsity team that's just getting used to how to run on offense and has multiple setters. This is helpful to be able to have 2 setters that play in the game and allow a lot of kids to hit and allow you to hit from different positions. So if you're interested in more sports administration, coaching tips and drills just like this, definitely hit the subscribe button, turn the bell so you get notified every time I upload, as I post a new video every single Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So now let's get started going through the rotation. So you definitely want to focus on where the setter is in this rotation. There's actually 2 of them, who's in the front row and who's in the back row. But this is definitely a helpful rotation if you have multiple setters on your team and want everybody to get hitting time too. So to start off learning a 6-2, you need to understand the 6 positions on the court. This service position is number 1, and then we rotate around the court number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then those are the main positions on the court, just so you understand where those are. Another thing to keep in note for a 6-2 is that your right side number 1 will sub in for setter number 2. And your right side number 2 will sub in for setter number 1, just so you have an idea, because not everybody keeps a setter in the whole time around the court. You will be able to see that the setters are listed around the court, so just wanted you to know like where right side would sub in for them. So to start off with position number 1, you have your setter in 1, your setter 1 in 1. So the setter is setting from the back row, so this is your main setter. And then you have outside 1, middle 2, setter 2, outside 2, and middle 1. You can also see their base positions over here. So these are the positions they're actually in, and then their base position. You can see the setters on one side of the court, then your middles, and then your outsides. So the way this serve receive position works is setter 1 is going to slide up and kind of stack on the side with outside 1, and setter 2 is going to slide back as another passer. You just have to make sure that middle 1 and setter 1, middle 1 stays to the left of setter 1, just so that they don't overlap. And setter 2 stays in front of outside 2, so right here you want to make sure there's a little gap in between them, so setter 2 is in front of outside 2. Position number 2, the way this one works is your setter 1 has now moved to 6 and your setter 2 has now moved to 3. I'm going to focus on where those 2 players are on the court just so you have an idea, as most of these roles run around the setter. Base positions, you can see just where they flip-flop between who's in the front row and who's in the back row. So for this one, setter 1 is supposed to be right here. They're sliding up to this front next to the other setter. Middle 2 are still in their position, outside 1, and middle 1's rotating over to cover the middle section, and then outside 2 is dropping back to cover that spot. So this is covering 6 and this is covering 5. The key here is to make sure that it stays middle 1, then setter 1, then outside 1 in a row, so there's no overlaps. Again, you're focusing on your overlaps, so you want to make sure that if you drew a line here and drew a line here, there's no overlap. And then outside 2 has to stay in front of middle 2, because this is your front row player and this person's a back row player. You want to make sure they stay in front of this person. Position 3, you have your setters now in 2 and in 5. So for this one, your back row stays exactly the same, your front row stays pretty much the same. You can have these 2 kind of stacked together so that they are easier to transition. So you have middle 1 kind of hug into the middle and outside hug into the outside, just so that they can quickly transition. You just want to make sure that they don't overlap. And the outside stays in the middle section and the middle stays on the left, but everybody's kind of in the position they need to be. So this is perfectly fine. There's not really anything that needs to be moved around for this one. So for number 3, you're also going to have setter 2 kind of set that first ball, that initial serve receive over the net, and then from that, once everybody's in base, setter 1 can come up and set the back set to setter 2. But just for that one, and it makes it nice and easy, so you have your 3 passers and everybody up here, because there's not an easy way to get somebody from the side of the court over here, so you just have to focus on that. So they'll set the first ball and then it will switch over. So if you have a right side with good hands, it's nice to have them in at that time. If not, you want to have your other setter, so it's just definitely focusing on that and where they are, because this person's probably going to have to set that first ball. Now all this does is pretty much repeat. So now it's repeating with setter 2 versus setter 1. So setter 1's going to drop back in path and setter 2 is going to come up and stack. You want to make sure that middle 2 and setter 2 don't overlap and setter 1 and outside 1 don't overlap. these are all repeating because all a 6-2 is the person setting from the back row. So as the person comes to the back row, they're now the setter. So all you're doing is repeating the first 3 with one person and the second 3 are with the opposite person. So number 5, just like number 2, you're gonna have the setter move up to the middle. You want to make sure that these 3 players stay in order and don't overlap. So if you drew the lines like this, they wouldn't overlap. And then you have outside 1 drop back to pass, and you want to make sure that outside 1 and middle 1 stay separate. And then again, your 6th position, you're going to have setter 1 set that first ball, and then setter 2 will be in their base position over here, and they can come up and set the rest. Just so you are aware of where people are on the court, this person's probably going to set your first ball, and then you're able to switch to the normal position of running with a back row setter. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. Again, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below about anything about this rotation, and I will have linked up in the iCard a 5-1 rotation if you're interested in running that with your team, so definitely check that out too. And if there's any other volleyball questions that you just have, definitely leave those in the comments too. I'd be happy to answer those. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Definitely hit that like button if you did. Subscribe if you want to see more sports videos, and I'll see you guys next Wednesday.